morning and welcome to the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose, and it's great to see you here on this beautiful, cool morning. Let's start our celebration service by standing up together and singing our congregational song. It's on the left side of your program. And so we allow it to be. As we continue to breathe deeply and deepen in our awareness of the oneness that we are. In this spirit of oneness, let us open our hearts and listen to the words of our sacred reading.
An adaptation of the Prayer of St. Francis by Reverend Kathy Ann Lewis of the Seattle Center for Spiritual Living. Father, Mother God, make me an instrument of your peace. Where people feel hatred, may my prayers for love be felt. Where there is fear, may my blessings of peace bring comfort. Where there are prejudices, may the Holy Spirit reveal the spiritual magnificence of all people. Where there is human wounding, may divine healing take place. God, may all of my conversations, thoughts, and actions contribute to the rising up of love and goodwill in and for all people. Of this country that I love. Let it be so.
So let us anchor in that spirit of love, in that spirit of sweetness and depth and power. And as we do, let us remember that one of the names of love is I am. Together we'll sing our chant, I am remembering who I am. And as we do, we remember the divine presence of love that lives and moves and has its perfect being through each of us. We remember it for ourselves. We remember it for our loved ones. We remember it for every being on the planet. Our words and our song reach out to bless everyone, to bless all beings. And so let us sing together, I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. And in this beautiful remembrance, let us breathe into our anchor, which is love. Breathing in, and then exhaling, opening our eyes in love with what is, as it is, and so it is.
Good morning. It's not going to move, so I'm just going to keep it right here. I am so excited to be playing with these cats here. It's an amazing situation y'all got with this band. Yeah. I mean, no joke. It's sort of like just, fish and water. They'll kind of go together. I show up here, they play, and it's like groovy automatically. And if you don't dig the word groovy, well, shame on you. So this particular song is a reminder. I love what you said, Reverend Bonnie, about loving, as it is right now. Sometimes I forget who I am, and I'm grateful for the service of those who call themselves practitioners, who help to remind me of who I am. Don't mess around with my story about what was and what might and the limitation, the lack, and all that kind of stuff, and they shoot right straight to the, you're a divine being, you're a divine emanation of the one. So this song has something to do with that. It's called Compassion. Mm-hmm. came by for tea one afternoon. She cried and cried so much that soon tea was tepid and forgotten. The fear said, this time I think he's gone for good. So in my mind I'm wondering, should I say this or that or not? Then suddenly the silence, right when everything was quiet, I knew what was needed, just love and compassion. Up on the second ring, he mumbled before confessing he was totally besotted. The fear moaned, he's only toying with my heart. So now I'm wondering how to start to unstop a mind that's clotted. Then in the silence, right here where everything is quiet, I knew what was needed, just love and compassion. Fear, binding, blinding fear. Fear no longer speaks to me. Oh, no, 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 no. It's love, love right now and here that clearly colors all I see. I see you now. I see true now. Now, 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 now. All is well. Forgot to mail the check today. Tomorrow someone's rightful pay will not be in their possession. Sometimes I feel like such a simple-minded fool. Maybe I should go back to school to pursue some safe profession. But in the silence, right here where everything is quiet, I know what is needed. Just love and compassion. Just love and compassion. It's just love and compassion. Just love and compassion. Just love and compassion. Oh, 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 ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Well, he just kind of rendered my whole talk obsolete. What else do you need to know besides what he's saying? That was so amazingly beautiful. So maybe I'll just stand up here and do it right today. Yeah. It's great. Oh, so wonderful. Thank you. And the band, my gosh, you just, oh, yeah. Just, yeah. All right, so I'm going to start by telling you an old story from, I think it's this, I don't know what tradition it's from, who cares, right? It's a story about heaven and hell. And this samurai warrior went to go and see a Tibetan monk, and he said to the Tibetan monk, I think I'm mixing my cultures here, but anyway, I don't care. He said to the Tibetan monk, "I want you to explain to me the difference between heaven and hell." So the Tibetan monk looked at him and he said, "Boy, you call yourself a samurai? You're kind of puny." And the samurai said, "What?" And he pulled out his sword, and the monk said, "You call that thing a sword? We got toothpicks better looking than that thing." In Tibet, of course. And the samurai got ready to slice off the monk's head, and just as he was about to lower his blade, the monk looked at him in compassion and said, "This is hell. You're experiencing hell right now." And the samurai was moved by the compassion in the monk's eyes, and he laid down his sword forever, and he knelt at the monk's feet, and he said, "My brother, you have taught me the true meaning of compassion. Thank you so much." And the monk said, "And this is heaven." So you see that it's a state of mind. It's a state of mind that depends not so much on external circumstances, but on what is going on inside of each of us. What is going on in our minds and our hearts and our beings, and what we're putting out there. We think as we live, and we live as we think. You know, and I know that a lot of us were distressed by the news this past week, or a little over a week, what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia, and a lot of us are deeply concerned about some of the uprising of hatred and bigotry that we're seeing in all over the world, really. It's coming to the surface now so that we can address it. And I am speaking about that today. I'm speaking about the idea that when hatred or bigotry or anything offensive rises up, is it okay, is it acceptable to hate the haters? Because I've seen a lot of hating of the haters, and I'm not sure that that's the way we really want to go with this. Now, let me tell you, first of all, how unqualified I am to give this talk. First of all, I'm not perfect. Second of all, I'm not political. Third of all, I don't know what I'm talking about. Which may actually, I had a better one than that, but I can't remember what it is, which may actually make me actually perfectly qualified to give this talk, because I am coming from a place of innocence and from a place of principle. A place of principle that knows that the wholeness within us and the wholeness of everything is greater than the brokenness that we might observe. That wholeness is there for us, and it works through us. And we have to be the vessels of that wholeness through our willingness to embrace compassion, true compassion. So I went on a journey with this week, because I wasn't really sure how to address this topic because of all those reasons that I gave you why I'm either qualified or unqualified to do it. The journey started when I picked up a book that someone in the congregation gave me, and I opened it up, and there was a quote by St. Francis. This was right after the rioting in Charlottesville, Virginia. And the quote by St. Francis said, "Can true humility and compassion exist in our words and eyes unless we know that we too are capable of any act?" Ew. Surely St. Francis is not talking about me or you or any of us. But he did say it, and he was a fairly enlightened guy, so I decided to see if that was true for me. Am I really capable of violence or hatred? And then I thought of the Charter for Compassion, which probably a lot of you have seen. You can look it up online. It's a beautiful charter for compassion where, I'll paraphrase it, but basically it says that any religion that teaches a doctrine that inspires hatred or bigotry or disdain or violence is illegitimate religion. And I thought, I don't know so much about the hatred and the violence, but the disdain, I'm familiar with that. And it's not the prettiest feeling in the world. So I asked God to show me, to teach me, to help me learn about how I might be like that St. Francis quote, how I might be capable of some of the things that inspire violence. I asked God to help me. And then I went to 7-Eleven. And when I was in 7-Eleven, I was standing at the counter buying my chocolate chip cookie and my lotto ticket. Did anybody win, by the way? Did you win? Good. Okay, great. We'll talk after service. Yeah. Anyway, I was buying something at 7-Eleven, and this man came in, and I felt this wave of disdain come over me, an actual wave of disdain. And I didn't exactly say, "Thank you, God," but I tried to look at why I felt disdainful of this person. It wasn't because he was a different ethnicity than me. He was Hispanic. It wasn't because he appeared to be slightly mentally ill. It was simply because he stood too close to me. Anybody feel that way ever? When somebody stands too close, it's uncomfortable. And you feel a little bit of disdain and judgment. And, my choice in that moment was to feel the disdain where could have been other more compassionate responses. Of course, we don't want strangers, touching us in the wrong places or whatever. But I could have just backed up and said, "How's your day going, sir?" Right? Could have done that, but I didn't. Instead, I felt disdain, which was a knee-jerk reaction, but it's also a choice. And now that I know better, it's even more of a choice, right? So afterwards, I looked at it and I said, "Thank you, God, for teaching me about disdain in 7-Eleven. And thank you for the lottery ticket. But thank you also for helping me understand some of the bigger picture that is going on here through my own experience of my own disdain." Because I looked at that. I looked at the reason I felt disdainful of this person, and what it wasn't, as I said, it wasn't because of his race, it wasn't because he was mentally ill, it was because of his proximity, and his proximity caused me to feel vulnerable. I felt vulnerable. The word vulnerable means open to attack. And whether it's a literal attack that is truly violent or a literal attack of being somebody violating your space or being touched in the wrong place, I felt vulnerable. And then I started thinking about racism and bigotry and hatred at large, some of the inspiration for violence, And I started thinking, maybe it's not so much about hatred, but it's about fear. That the underlying emotion under anger is often sadness and feeling hurt. And I believe that the underlying emotion around hatred and violence is often fear. People feel vulnerable. They feel that somebody is going to take something away from them. It doesn't make any sense to those of us who know differently. When people say we're going to take back America, I'm like, where did it go? It's here. This is what it is. This is what it is. And it. Thank you. It doesn't make any sense to me too in terms of limiting certain groups of people. I remember understanding this when I was watching Oprah in, the 70s or the 80s or something, and thinking, if you're opposed to a certain group of people, what if that person is holding the cure for cancer, and if they get enough education, they can bring that forth, Our willingness to embrace everybody embraces us as well. But yet, there is that fear that people are unwilling to look at. They don't want to see it in themselves. It's much easier to anchor in anger and violence rather than acknowledge and admit our fears. But maybe there is a better way, and maybe we who are here today by divine appointment can be the light bearers for that better way. It's interesting to me that I just said that vulnerability seems to be the cause of a lot of outrage and anger, fear. What if vulnerability is also the cure? Our willingness to be vulnerable. First of all, to practice the vulnerability of looking within ourselves when we are finding ourselves immersed in hatred or anger or disdain, whatever it is, and saying, what is this really about? Where is this taking place in me? What is this really about? And then recognizing that our own poise and equanimity on this matter can help us bridge the gap between those who think and feel and act differently than we do. There's a great book that I read a while ago. It's called Faithiest. And it's by a young man I wrote down his name. I always forget what it is. Chris Stedman. And Chris was raised in I think it was a very fundamentalist religion. It was something like Southern Baptist or what have you. And he was raised in the Southern Baptist church, and as he started maturing, he realized that he was gay. And of course, in his church, in that particular church, they were opposed to that, and they wanted him to change, and they wanted him to be different. So he tried it for a while, and then he said, forget it, I'm gay, I'm going someplace else. His mother found a Christian church that was open and affirming of same-sex relationships. And even then, he said that he felt that the Christian faith, or any faith, really wasn't for him, so he became an atheist. What happened was, though, is that when he would mingle with fellow atheists, he found that they were just as prejudiced against the other side and just as violent and hateful and disdainful in their speech, not necessarily their actions, to the other side, as the other side was to this side. And he wrote a book about it, and it's really good. I highly recommend it. One of our practitioners gave it to me, and it's really good. But Chris said that when he was first working as an activist he started trying to bridge the gap between people that are opposed to homosexuality versus people that are gay or people that are not opposed to homosexuality, right? And so there was this group of, I'm going to say fundamentalist Christians that were protesting outside a gay bar, a gay nightclub. And Chris went up to them and he just started having a conversation with them. And it was a very open conversation. He was explaining his point of view and he was allowing the fundamentalists to explain their point of view. There's this one guy he was talking to. And finally, towards the end of the conversation, they shook hands, and Chris said to the guy, by the way, have you ever met a gay person before? And the guy said, no, actually, you're the first gay person I've ever spoken to. You see what kind of a seed is planted there by the willingness to be vulnerable. I mean, that's so hard. I admire him for going up to somebody that is going to scorn and ridicule him and just being willing to hear what he has to say without getting defensive, but without cowering and shrinking and backing down either. That's such a talent, such a skill that few of us learn. We usually learn the opposite, you know? And, you know, I feel a little awkward talking about hatred and bigotry and that type of thing because I am preaching to the choir for the most part, I think. But you know, I'm still looking for that place within us that is perhaps hating of the haters. You know, one of the reasons that I feel awkward talking about these topics is because of my race, my sexual orientation, my gender identification. You know, occasionally people get mad at me because of this religion that I practice. You know, I get people that want to pray for my soul, which is fine, or they want me to convert. Occasionally, because I'm a woman, when I'm assertive, I speak to a man who is kind of like, oh, honey, you've just got the PMS, don't you? My response to that is, thank you. Oh, my gosh. It's been years. I mean, that's that is universal sign language for you know, menopause, right? Does anybody know the real sign for menopause? Julie? Okay. I thought you worked with hearing impaired people. Okay, good. Yeah, learn it and get back to me. Thank you. But for now, it's this. Okay. This is what I'm going to hear about at the back of the church. Everybody's going to be, good luck with your... But anyway, I have had opportunities in my life, as probably many of us have, to stand up for what is right. And sometimes I'm really bad at it, and sometimes I'm decent at it, okay? I'm still learning because I haven't had a lot of practice. I'll tell you about a time that I was bad at it was when I was in ministerial school. I'm going to tell you this one instead. This is when I first came to the church, to the center. I used to audition singers as we were trying to build up our list, and now we have more singers than we can use, and they're all awesome. But anyway, I auditioned this singer, and he sang pretty well, and I told him a little bit about the church, not very much, but on the way from the piano back to my office, he morphed into something really different, into someone that I thought would not perhaps be a good representative of our message. And he appeared to be a bit polarized, fundamentalist Christian, and a bit homophobic. And rather than speaking to him directly about that, I just let him go and I never called him. But what if I could have spoken to him directly about that and said, you know, in this church we celebrate various forms of the variation on the theme of sexuality. You know, when Kim wanted to first teach her sensualicious class, she was like, is it okay to teach this in a church, you know, something about sexuality? I'm like, well, just make sure it's inclusive of same-sex couples as well, you know? So it could have been different. It could have been a teachable moment perhaps for both of us, not only for him, that I'm going to enlighten him with my elevated viewpoint, but I could gain more understanding of where he was coming from. So I feel like that was kind of a fail on my part, that I didn't handle that as well as I could have. The time that I felt that I did do a good job, and there have been other times too, but this is the one that really stands out for me because it took a lot of work to get to this place. It was when I was about to teach this class that was from a Christian minister, and it was Bible-based, and a lot of people in this center are a little terrified of the Bible, so I wasn't sure if I should, well, although there's some really great stuff in there, but anyway, I really want to tell this story about the hemorrhoids in the Bible, but I can't. It's too late. Okay, let me just digress for just a moment. So when we were see what happens when you show up for Church Appreciation Day and you plant in the garden? We were working in the garden where we planted agaves and such, and one of the volunteers told me that, sure enough, in the book of Samuel, God smited the Philistines. The Philistines, they looked at the Ark of the Covenant, and he gave them hemorrhoids. I was like, what, hemorrhoid? I mean, why wouldn't he make them go blind? I mean, were they like bending over and tying their shoe or something? And he missed? I mean, what? But then, of course, I ran into the office, ran over to Annette, we looked it up, and sure enough, it's in the Bible. Look it up, it's in the book of Samuel. Now I've completely forgotten where I was. Okay, yeah, okay, we love the Bible. Okay, so anyway, I was getting ready to teach this class, and it was a great class. It was a great topic. It was about getting out of debt, and it kind of promised that anybody in your congregation who took the class who was in debt could get out of debt. And I thought, wow, that is such a beautiful thing to offer people. Think about what kind of freedom that would invoke, and how wonderful that would be, and how beautiful that would be for our church community, for our center. And I read the fine print before I signed the contract, and it said that couples could get 2 for the price of 1, and that was couple defined as a man and a woman. So I could see myself receiving payment for the class and saying, okay, thanks, John and Mary, you get the straight price, and oh, you, Bill and Tom, you have to pay the gay price, which is twice as much, right? Right? So I was like, obviously I can't teach this if this is the rules, but let me see if they're flexible at all. So I emailed the person, the person who was in charge of handing out the class materials, and it took me a really long time to get to the place where I could email her from a place of compassion and understanding. I had to do a lot of prayer. I had to call someone to pray with me. I had to do a lot of breathing and a lot of understanding of, okay, you're going to lash out in fear because you're afraid of what she's going to say to you. She's going to criticize you for your beliefs. She is going to be hypercritical of you for your beliefs. But wait a minute, aren't you getting ready to criticize her for her beliefs? Yeah. And then the angel said, it's okay. So what I did was I just wrote a very calm and kind email about, this is what we teach in our church. Is there any way that we can work together? And she said, you know, we really want you to abide by the covenant that we established. And I said, okay, well then I guess we can't work together, but God bless you, and we'll both go our separate ways. But again, it was planting a seed, not with the singer who morphed into something different in my office. But it was planting. I didn't do it with him, but I planted it with this person. And I don't know whether it changed her life, but I believe that every time we plant a seed of good, no matter how big or how small it is, no matter how tiny it is, because most of the seeds of good that we're going to plant are going to be tiny. Tiny gestures, tiny acts of blessedness, tiny acts of grace. Most of them are small. We can't just wait for those big triumphant moments where we really feel the effects of what we're doing. Just continuing to plant those seeds for good, that's what changes the world. That's what opens us up. And that's what the gift is anytime there is adversity in the world. It's to open us up to the wholeness that always is. It's to know, once again, that our wholeness encompasses any appearance of brokenness. I know for me that for what has been going on in the world in the last year or so and beyond, but most particularly recently because people are so up in arms and fired up, is that I have, for how long have I been here? Almost 14 years. For the first 5 years I was terrified. Then after that, I was just kind of like, yeah, church is working pretty well, just kind of lollygagging, yeah, ooh, it's okay. I can do this. But what's going on in the world has really impassioned me and empowered me and made me recognize how important it is what we do here. We come here together to know the truth. We come here together to remember who we are. We sing about it every Sunday. We come here together to say, you are the face of God, and to ensure that we can say that you are the face of God to everybody, even those people that seem like they're against us, even the people that are hateful, that appear to be hateful. We come here to look past the appearance, to look into the vulnerability of people's souls. We come here to talk about hemorrhoids, for God's sake. We come here for so much good. And what would it be like if we could get that good out into the world through ourselves, but also through expanding our outreach and our vision and our mission? That's why, as much as I love the name To Play as God Plays, we are renaming that. And I'm thinking also that we need something updated for that. To love as God loves. I know, it's beautiful. We can keep it. But I want something in addition to it, okay? I would like to be the Ventura Center for Spiritual Living, a center of love. A center of love, a jewel of love, a center of love. And then I want to invite people who come here to be love, share love, and serve love. If you like that, will you give me a round of applause, please? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not supposed to make those decisions on my own, but I spoke with a bunch of people about it, and it came to me in a vision, so thank you for that applause. That gives me faith and confidence that we are on the right track, that we definitely are on the right track. The question I have for you, though, is what will you do with all this love? How will you bring it into your lives? How will you bring it into your families? How will you bring it onto Facebook, for God's sake? Facebook is both heaven and hell at the same time, isn't it? How will you be the love that you wish to see in the world? To paraphrase Gandhi, I believe. And how will you be what Dr. Martin Luther King said? I'm going to read a quote from him in closing. Dr. King said, "And I must confess, my friends, that the road ahead will not always be smooth. There will still be rocky places of frustration and meandering points of bewilderment. There will be inevitable setbacks here and there will be those moments where the buoyancy of hope will be transformed into the fatigue of despair. Our dreams will sometimes be shattered and our ethereal hopes blasted. And it's true, we may have to walk through some of that stuff. But then he writes, but difficult and painful as it is, we must walk on in the days ahead with an audacious faith in the future." Will you join me in having audacious faith in the future? Will you join me in having audacious faith in this center and the work that we can do here? Will you join me in having audacious faith in love? Thank you. Let us join together now. Thank you. Thank you. Do you guys feel iffy about applauding after talks? It always feels kind of like, It's because I usually go right into prayer, so it's, Okay. All right. So let us pray and let us know that all things are blessed. Everything that we imagine, everything that we don't imagine, everything that is in our hearts, everything that feels outside of us, everything that is seen and unseen. This is the wholeness of God expressing in what words cannot express. Today I recognize and remember that nothing exists outside the walls of this place existence, and that we are part of that nothingness and part of that beingness and part of that grace and part of that greatness. We are that which is. We are that I am. And so I know this for myself, and I know it for every single person sitting here in this sacred sanctuary. As I know it for me, I know it for you. And if I use the first person, I'm using the universal I, the I that encompasses all of us, the I am that is the name of God, that is the name of peace, that is the name of love. And so here together we affirm that we are peace, that we are joy, that we are love, that we release the need to hate any haters, and that we move into that place of vulnerability and grace, knowing that our place of vulnerability is really our place of power, that we combine power and love, as Dr. King said to do, that we are that place that shows up and says yes, that says yes to greater wholeness emerging through all appearances of brokenness, that we are that power, we are that presence, we are that love, we are that compassion, we are true compassion, we are integrity, we are humility, we are grace. We are the peace that passes human understanding, and we are the path of love. I am so grateful to know this truth as it applies to each of us, each in our unique and individual ways. How wonderful that we are so diverse in ways that are seen and unseen. How wonderful it is that we can use these words in so many and infinite ways. I'm so grateful for the transformation that I know has occurred here with each of us in response to our meeting together and our fellowship and our joyship. And I'm so grateful to know that this gathering causes a ripple effect that goes into the world and blesses all beings. Today I bless this teaching, and I bless this center and each person in it. I bless all paths to God. I bless churches, temples, mosques, ashrams, fundamentalists, atheists. I bless everyone because I know that everyone is a blessing in their own and unique way. And so how wonderful it is to be in this spirit and in this state of blessedness. And with a heart filled with love, I say, thank you, Spirit, thank you, God, and I release these words into the divine mystery, and together we say, and so it is. I am so blessed. I am